Fear of crime is visceral, always has been, always will be. It is, therefore, a permanent political issue. Emotions around it coiled and sometimes crude. And by that I mean anecdotes and images in our mind understandably carry greater weight than statistics or trend lines. President Trump has thrown the National Guard and federal law enforcement at crime here in Washington, D.C. Lots of arrests have been made, even though records show only a slight numerical increase in the number of arrests over the arrests that police in D.C. were making before the armored vehicles arrived and federal dragnets commenced. Our review of charging documents and similar reviews conducted by the New York Times reveal arrests for some serious crimes. That's very much true. But many more arrests for traffic offenses, drinking liquor in public, or carrying a firearm without the proper D.C. permit. In fact, fewer than 10% of the cases involving federal agents, according to the New York Times, were for violent crimes or for property crimes. Yet the potency of hyping a crime wave and double hyping its sudden absence is, well, undeniable. The White House craves a clash with Democrats over fighting crime. The president said this afternoon other presidents never did what he's done or contemplates doing, militarizing policing in many parts of our country. He said D.C. was a test and that military deployments will come to Chicago and quite probably Baltimore and may return to Los Angeles, vociferous local objections notwithstanding. The president said he had limitless rights to impose order. What this means to the notion that cities and states have their own rights, their own jurisdiction, their own political legitimacy is anyone's guess. To be clear, federal crime task forces have worked with local police in our country for decades to fight crime. This is not that. This is a president deciding, as no president before has, where crime is bad, what constitutes a crime crisis, and then imposing a military crackdown for a duration of his own choosing. It leaves details like the kind of cases brought or the cost benefit of having the feds chase open container violations or those who run red lights. Well, those details are left for those people who compose footnotes that can be found inside, many years later, moldering history books. The president did make some other news today on the Space Force, tariffs, and a few other matters. For that, we turn to Nancy Cordes, as we so often do, with confidence at the White House. Nancy, great to see you this Monday afternoon. The president did talk about Space Force, tariffs, and crime nationally. Give us your summary.
Well, after hinting for weeks, Major, that he was going to do something like this, President Trump said today, point blank for the first time, that he does plan to send National Guard troops to the Windy City, that it is not a matter of if, but when. He didn't say when, but he seemed pretty determined to do it despite the vociferous opposition that has been voiced by Chicago's mayor and by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. President Trump said he hopes that Pritzker will call him and ask him to send more federal aid. And the president rattled off crime statistics from Chicago from just this long weekend. But he said whether Pritzker comes around on this issue or not, he feels that he has the right and the authority to do it. And so he plans to send National Guard troops into Chicago, despite a ruling from a federal district judge just today that said that the president overstepped his authority, violated federal law when he sent National Guard troops into Los Angeles a few months ago.
And the president also said that the administration would, on an expedited basis, seek Supreme Court review of an appeals court ruling that came down late last week, nullifying many, not all, but many of the tariffs the administration has set in motion.
Right, and the White House is using fairly apocalyptic language to describe what would happen if the president's tariffs were to be blocked long term in any way. The president has said that it would destroy the economy and that it would be terrible not just for the U.S. but for the for global commerce. So the White House really leaning in to this fight, even as we watch these tariffs wend their way through the federal courts, which is causing some unease not only for U.S. businesses, but for really businesses around the world who are trying to figure out how exactly this is going to affect them in the months to come.
Nancy Cordes at the White House, thank you so very, very much. CBS News Justice Department reporter Jake Rosen joins me now here at the family table. Jake, great to see you. Let's talk about what the president said today, the plans for Chicago. What, if anything, do we know about what those plans actually are? As
it stands right now, Major, our colleagues reported last week in the Immigration and Justice Department here at CBS that there is going to be increased federal immigration authorities present in Chicago starting this week and kicking up throughout. But again, as this is just the kicking off point of what they're going to do, what we saw and have continued to see in Los Angeles, what we've seen creep into Washington, D.C. after the federal takeover started. But what this opens the door for is the National Guard to potentially be called in, because we saw this in Los Angeles and we kind of have seen the reverse in Washington, D.C. But as immigration authorities have come in, protests come in. As protests come in, there are potential bad actors who, as we saw in Los Angeles, the easiest example was throwing bricks through truck windows. Damage easily hurts somebody driving, officers who do not deserve to be hurt in their line of work or hurt. Then that creates an emergency in the eyes of the White House. They are then given the opportunity to not just have these troops protect federal buildings, but then they are creeping into the mission, protecting the trucks that potentially are in, walking alongside. And that is what this judge in San Francisco ruled was wrong and illegal that the Trump administration did today.
I want to play some sound from Face the Nation yesterday. My colleague Ed O'Keefe, who did a wonderful job sitting in for me for a couple of days, talked to J.B. Pritzker, Illinois governor, Democrat, and Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security. Let's play those control room back to back, please.
Notice he never talks about where the most violent crime is occurring, which is in red states. Illinois is not even in the bottom half of states.
This seems like it's more about Governor Pritzker's ego now, rather than actually protecting his people. If he has one murder in the city of Chicago, he should be calling President Trump and saying, what's your ideas? What can we do?
One murder. If that's the definition of this White House of a crime crisis, it is going to be sending, or believes it will have the authority to send federal law enforcement and possibly National Guard anywhere in this country.
Absolutely. And I think we should put what both Governor Pritzker and Noem said very briefly just into context, is that of cities with over 100,000 people in them, Chicago actually ranks 80th in terms of crime. Again, violent crime per 100,000 people. But again, at the same time, the other cities that the president has actually talked about, Oakland, so San Francisco, again, not off the table, Baltimore, Cleveland, Memphis, all cities who rank in the top 5. There hasn't been this same talk. Well, it's because J.B. Pritzker has been extremely vocal. I don't think it's a coincidence. We've seen the mayor of Baltimore be extremely vocal and his pushing back, the mayor of Baltimore pushing back, and obviously Gavin Newsom, President Trump's public enemy number one, really targeting this and drawing that attention on himself.
It's a continuing story, and Jake, we're going to turn to you many, many times on it. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.